Hi everyone, my name's Craig Simpson from the New Zealand Landcare Trust. Here today to talk about farm environmental planning, and just going to talk a little bit about what farm environmental plans are, what they involve, why you'd get them, and how you might look at getting them. I've got here with me Sandra Campbell, and Sandra's going to talk about her experience with getting her farm plan through Fonterra. So yeah, so let's just get into it. So we'll make sure this is going to work. So yeah, just want to emphasize that if you wanted to ask a question, and we're encouraging questions, that if you could just let us know by using the chat function, and that's down the bottom of your screen. So hopefully hopefully there's no problems with that, but just use your chat function, asking questions as we go through. And I'm going to try a poll, never tried this before. I wrote it about 5 minutes ago, so there's a good chance it may not work, but I'm going to try this. So I'm going to go launch polling. And what we're going to do is we're going to get you to answer this question. So are you a farmer, rural professional, or other? And if you are a farmer, do you have a farm plan? So if you can just hit that polling, that'd be cool. Okay, and I'll give you another 5 seconds. I've got a timer on my poll, so it tells me when a minute's up. So I've got 5 more seconds.
The chat's saying it might not be working very well for some. Sorry, Craig.
Oh, that's all right. Well, I'll end the polling now, and we'll see. I wonder if it's going to give me a copy of the results.
Some can.
Can you see that, Sandra?
Yeah, I can. Yep, and some have answered, so we're just going to have a little bit of distortion on.
Yeah, sorry about this. So here we go. So there's 47% in the audience are farmers, 42 rural professionals, and 11% other, which I'm not sure what that is. I never thought to ask what that was. And for the farmers, 79% don't have a farm plan as yet, and 21% do. So you go, that's kind of interesting stats. So just carry on with this. So that changed over all right? Yep. So what we're going to do today, we're going to talk about why we should have a farm plan, benefits of a farm plan, the perspective from a local farmer, which is Sandra. Talk a little bit about the government regulations, regional requirements, and where to go from here. So for a start, what is a farm environmental plan? I think a really simple way to look at it is it's an assessment of how your farm system interacts with its environment. That's in a nutshell kind of what a farm plan is. And it's a plan which outlines how you will manage your farm's impacts both now and into the future. So some things you might not be quite at where you want to be, but you're making a plan as to how you'll get there into the future. So what do they include? And I'm not going to go into this in any great detail, but just a couple of things to think about. They're built on a good farm map, and I think this to me is quite a critical component, and I'm not quite sure how a lot of these farm plans are offered currently, but having a good digital map seems to me to be a really good thing. So that will include things like farm boundaries, paddocks, marking waterways on your maps, different land management units, and land management units could include like where you got your crops or forestry blocks or kind of other things like that. And a good farm map would also include things like areas of critical source areas. So critical source areas are just areas where there's a source of contamination potentially which could actually reach a waterway. And obviously, as mentioned before, a farm plan includes your plans to mitigate the risks. So you kind of built your map up, you're identifying different areas on your farms which may pose a risk, and you're thinking about how you're going to mitigate those risks. So what should you do in farm environmental plan? So FEP just stands for Farm Environmental Plan, sorry. For one, it demonstrates really good farming practice, and it can kind of help to highlight areas where you could improve. Builds resilience and future-proofs your farming system. It's going to be a requirement, is the point there. And we'll talk about that a little bit later with the new government announcements. Ultimately, I think it's good for the environment. And the other thing, I think a plan is always a good thing, to have something written down and to just refocus your mind. So what we're going to do now is Sandra is going to talk about her experience with farm environmental plans. And I don't even know if I've spelt that name wrong, Sandra. Where you from? Kaihiku, is that right?
Kaihiku. The creek's the Kaihiku, yeah.
Yeah, so I'll pass you on to Sandra.
It's strange being in a Zoom meeting with not having lots of other people talking back to me, but hopefully ask some questions. So we're dairy farming on the Kaihiku. We've owned the farm for 4 years, so we're relatively new farmers, I guess. Bruce is on the call and he did our farm environmental plan, so we're dairy farmers. So, and we supply Fonterra, which makes this really easy for us. I almost feel like I cheated compared to the beef and lamb guys that have got to do their own. So the process we went through, we rang Bruce up a year ago. We've had it for 12 months. I've just looked at the date. And he came out on farm and drove around the farm like literally a day. We might have given some information around effluent area, farm map, but it wasn't arduous. It was really good. I found the whole process really interesting. I believe now there's a wee bit of a wait time with Fonterra, like maybe a year, and they're sending their local reps or their TSRs out to do a wee bit of preliminary stuff just to speed the process up. I could be wrong, but I think that's my understanding. If I was a dairy farmer now and I didn't have one, I'd just be ringing and getting my name on a list, because it's really good information that you're not paying for. Well, you probably are one way or the other, but it's not like getting a consultant and doing it yourself. So we rang Fonterra, Bruce came out. Now, we probably, because we were just new farm owners, we really did use this as a planning tool and a chance to drive around the farm and actually do some planning with how we were going to manage the property and what we had to look at in areas. The good thing about Bruce coming out is he's independent, so it's not like driving around with regional council or someone that's going to police your system. He's out there to actually offer advice, and he lives this stuff, so he has lots of information. We have some forestry on our farm and didn't know we don't have the cutting rights, so who's going to be responsible for water quality when the forestry crew come in? So he could answer some of those questions, but really it's a planning tool. And I guess I've put there that it's like a budget. You need to use it and update it. It's not just something you do and put in the drawer, or it's still useful because we need it going forward with legislation. But I think as an actual planning tool for the farm, you have to keep revisiting it. I've talked about, so the base document is complete now. So we're done. There's going to be a few changes, but not anything major. So we've got our farm map in there. We've got our area, our soil type, our fencing. We had a good farm map that we GPSed when we first got here, which is helpful. I think it would be harder if you didn't. So the things that will probably change now is our winter management. That's going to change every 12 months, but inevitably how we're grazing paddocks and stuff, the base of it's still good. And then nutrient budget will get updated each year with Fonterra. Other than that, it's just small updates. So I've just fenced a whole lot, so I'll go in and change that now. And like we've got those, we had them in our head. We knew what we were probably going to do anyway, but it's getting it all written down. I think farmers have everything in their head and nothing written down usually. So then the uses that we've used it for, the Fonterra cooperative difference. So you need your farm environmental plan in order to get your free points. Sandra, did you get your carbon emissions in your FEP? Yes. No, it might have been before that, but we do have them with Overseer. So I was looking them up in Overseer the other day, and I need to, I was talking to Dairy NZ about what we do with that number now, with our emissions for the farm, but that's a work in progress. I'm learning. Yeah, so we've got our farm environmental plan. We've used it for our cooperative difference this year. We wouldn't have got that 1,500 points without it. We've used it when we entered the balance awards. And we also got asked if we had one when ORC come out here for like a training day. And we could say, yep, it's all done. And also now we're done and we've got it ready for the consenting process. Sorry, the boys are just coming for lunch. I'm just going to shut the door so you don't get a whole lot of chitter chatter. Yeah, so it's done now for the consenting process that we're probably going to have to go through when ORC have one ready for us for the new water regime. So that's done now. The two areas that are big for us is the effluent management and the winter crop management. That's probably our main ones. But then there's other things that Bruce come up with that I probably hadn't thought of, like septic tanks, silage leachate and the forestry, and then stuff like a nib wall at the back of the yard and water off the roof at the cow shed. There's things we hadn't thought of that he brought to our attention. So it was really good because sometimes you look at something for 4 years and you don't see until you get a fresh face at it. So that was quite good. Yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Sandra. That's cool. And just remind everyone just to keep the questions coming through, especially if you've got any for Sandra. She loves questions. Okay, so just wanted to give you some stats from a Farm IQ study that came out. They had a survey earlier in the year, and for Otago they had 57 farmers, and of those 25 had got their farm environmental plans and the rest had not. And the question they asked was on the left of the screen here: what was your main reason for not having a farm environmental plan? And there's the answers there that they kind of gave. So 16 people, the first one said, I don't know where to start. 11 said, I don't need one yet. 10, I don't have time. And 10 were waiting to be told that I need to do one. So that's kind of interesting because, you know, we're starting to move now into a space where it's looking more and more likely that they're going to be mandatory. And now I think what's happening is we're trying to figure out what exactly is going to go into those farm plans. Now I've got to talk about the government, you know, regulations in a second, but just before I do that, I'm going to try and see if I can unmute Tom Orchardson from Beef and Lamb, because I know he's got to shoot away at 12:20, so I'm giving him a couple of minutes. So let's see if I can do this. Where are you, Tom? There you go. Allow to talk.
Great, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yep. So Tom's just going to talk about, from Beef and Lamb's perspective, that, you know, they can set up, or what you're expecting, Tom, with considering the government regulations coming in. Are your land and environment plans still able to be going to be useful, and how you might be able to get about getting a land environment plan. So yeah, take it away.
Great. Thanks, Craig. Well, that was a really great introduction from you, Craig, and also from Sandra, just to hear about your farm plans and how that's working for you. So with beef and lamb, we've got and the farm plans come with a variety of names: farm plans, land environment plans, farm environment management plans, all these different names, but essentially they're really kind of doing the same thing, which are those things that Craig's outlined earlier about matching up your on-farm practices with your environmental needs for your farm as well. So at Beef and Lamb, we're offering our land and environment plans, and so yeah, any farmers are welcome to come along to those workshops. They're free workshops, and you can register for those on our website, or else you can contact me directly. And register for those. They're sort of run periodically. We're just also in the process of just doing some online delivery of those workshops, so that you can sit at home as we are now, and you can work your way through the farm environment plan. So in terms of are our farm environment plans still relevant? Yep, they're definitely relevant. They're a really good start to get you on this farm planning process. So it's all about and like Sandra said before, it's not something you ideally not something you just put away in a drawer. It needs to be an active plan, and the requirements will require it to be reviewed at least annually anyway. So with our beef and lamb plans, they're a really good starting point to start getting your information together, seeing what your resources are in your farm, your natural resources, where everything is, starting to get things mapped out, critical source areas and that type of thing, waterways, fencing and so on. So a really good place to start, and they can be built on. And obviously with the regulations changing, and Craig will talk about those shortly, we're just working through a process at the moment within beef and lamb to make sure that our plans are getting farmers to sort of ahead of that curve, and really being proactive, because there's a whole number of reasons for doing a farm plan, but obviously one of those is meeting regulations, and also providing assurance to users on farm who are buying the product. So we're just undergoing a process at the moment to look at that and review, and making sure we're covering things like biodiversity, soils, freshwater, and climate. So there'll be extra modules that will be built into our farm planning templates. But yeah, I think that's what you wanted to know there, Craig. Is there any other things that I missed out there?
No, I think you've covered that really well. Thanks, Tom. Just quickly, if anyone does have a quick question, if you could chuck it in the chat. You may even be able to raise your hand, and I can try and unmute you if someone has anything. But if not, I'll let you go, Tom, and we'll carry on. So yeah, nothing's coming up just currently. So I'll just say thanks, Tom. And if there are any questions, and Tom, you might have to shoot. I can always, if you fire them into us, I can always get in touch with Tom and kind of get that liaison going.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yep.
Happy to.
Sound?
Yep, that sounds great to me. Happy to answer any questions that that come in. I'd just really like to encourage the farmers out there, just get stuck into the farm environment planning. As Sandra said, it's once you get started into it, it's not as difficult as you think, and you just do as much as you think you need to do. You don't need to do everything all in 1 year. It's a plan, so little bits at a time.
Yep, awesome. Rightio. Right, we'll carry on. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so I'm just going to cover about the Action for Healthy Waterways. The government's just made some announcements lately, and hopefully we'll kind of address a couple of those, or see a question on here about biodiversity plans. So, but basically what's been announced is that by 2025, all farms over 5 hectares, if you're a horticultural farm, need to have a farm environmental plan with a freshwater module. That's my understanding anyway. And I'm going to ask Thankfully, I've got David Cooper here from Fed Farmers, who might be able to correct me on anything I get wrong in this wee section. And by 2025, all farms that are over 20 hectares are going to need a farm environmental plan. There's also something specific there that within 2 years for vegetable production, or within 2 years for specific catchments. Now, what I'm going to ask David to comment on, I haven't given David a heads up on this yet, but is there any specific catchments in Otago? So that's something for you to think about. I'll get one more slide before I let you allow you to talk there, David. So coming on to the next one. So the farm environmental plan with the freshwater module and the farm plans are going to have these requirements. There's a requirement for a risk assessment of contaminant loss from farm that could ultimately impact freshwater. And if there are risks identified, what are your action points to address those risks? And then the third point there is, what are the timeframes for those actions? And then what will come out of that is that those actions and the timeframes that you've kind of set in your farm plan will be audited. So there's a requirement for those to be audited. So that's all I was going to cover on the government's national environmental strategy. David, did you have anything there that, any catchments that you knew of in Otago that require a farm plan earlier, or is there any other information that I may have missed? And are you able to talk?
Yeah, just not that I recall. I should probably know this, but not that I recall. I think they're all south in Waikato, Canterbury.
Right, excellent. Is there anything else there that I kind of might be pertinent to just mention that you can think of, David?
Yeah, just in terms of the farm planning process, that's still to be worked through. So government's committed to working with industry, iwi, regional councils to work out what will be in the farm plans, what is required, and how that will be audited, most importantly. So as we're seeing it at the moment, it's likely that industry will still take ownership of those farm plans.
Yep.
So the framework Sandras is working under will probably remain the same, but there might be changes to what those farm plans cover. There will be questions around how those are audited and who audits them. So industry are very keen to have an industry leadership thing. There are questions around what that will mean for regional council responsibilities for auditing. So that's still to come, and that'll be worked over the next year. There's also a Ministry of Primary Industries integrated farm planning project where they're trying to get again, the biodiversity components, the climate change components, freshwater components within one plan or within one planning mechanism. So it's going to be something over the next year or so.
So just on that, David, there's a question here from Tristan Hope. Will biodiversity plans take into account district council rules, e.g. the district plan? Or how would you?
Kim's probably better the place to comment, but they will come in over the existing biodiversity rules. So they will put additional requirements over the existing biodiversity rules. In some areas though, the regional council, district councils will already be meeting those criteria, and in other areas they will actually be exceeding those criteria. So the specific rules are yet to be worked out, and there will be also a greater focus on assisting landowners through that as well.
Excellent. Hey, thank you very much, David. We'll keep moving on that one. If there's any questions that anyone's got, yeah, just let us know, and I'm glad to have people like David and Kim on the call that I can call on when I don't know the hard answers. Now, the next one I just wanted to touch on really quickly before we just kind of open up to any other questions, and this is more or less the last slide. Why should I do this? Why should I get a farm environmental plan in light of the government regulations? You know, when we've already talked about how the government's still trying to figure out the details. And I thought what would be interesting for Otago farmers was where's Otago Regional Council stance on this, and do we know any more information? So I've asked Rebecca Begg to just have 2 minutes on what that might look like from a regional council's point of view. So I'm pushing allow you to talk, Rebecca. So can you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
To be honest, most of what I can talk about has been covered already. We don't have any statutory requirements for a farm environment plan in Otago at the moment. Clearly they are coming. For all of those reasons that everybody has been talking about, now is a good time to start looking at your farm environment plan. Having said that, you can still be doing work on your farm, and it is still awesome things for the environment and all of those mitigations that you can be doing, and you could and should be doing them even in the absence of a farm environment plan. Having said that, as Sandra said also, the value is in having it written down. And the other thing that we haven't really touched on is the prioritisation that you can do when you're actually looking at it in a structured way. The only other thing is that there is mechanisms for having farm environment plans done for you through consultants and such like. We've seen a few people that have gone down that path, but just keep in mind that the value in having them is definitely in knowing what is in your environment plan. So there's no point having it to meet some criteria and ticking the box and then popping it underneath the computer screen to prop it up and never looking at it again. Apart from that, any plan that you make at the moment, anything that you write down is going to be a good foundation for what you need to have going forward. And so there's definitely some value in starting somewhere and working through what you can. You don't have to be using a template, or you don't have to have a consultant do it. Farmers know a lot more about what's going on their farm than perhaps what they might give themselves credit for in this space. And so you can just crack into it. There is a bunch of information around to help you do that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you, Rebecca. That's really helpful. And I know Rebecca and her team, they'll be very happy to take questions from anyone anyone who has them. And you guys are gonna be conveying the the developments from the regional council right as time goes on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yep. Cool.
The other place to sign up to is our on-stream e-newsletter. So either talk to Craig or talk to Nicole, Bruce, or myself. We have an e-newsletter called OnStream. It goes out once a month. And if there is anything special to tell you in between those monthly editions, then it will be in there. And that is where we've been sharing any information that we've got on the NES and NPS. So the policy statements that are coming and the impacts of those. So a good place to stay up to date.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's good because it's only once a month, so you don't get like too bombarded with all these emails that you don't want to read. Hey, awesome. Thanks, Bex. That's great. Right, question time. We've got actually 0 minutes left, but if there's any questions that anyone has, fire them in the chat, or maybe put up your hand and I can unmute you, but I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do that. But anyway. I'll give you 30 seconds to do any questions. Okay, so here's a question here. Ag ITO it's from Heather Foster. Ag ITO do a sustainability paper as part of the agribusiness diploma, and it helps you develop your own quite detailed farm environmental plan. I have just done mine and found it really useful. So that's more of just a point from Heather. So Ag ITO do a sustainability paper as part of the agribusiness diploma. So yep, if anyone wants to have a look at that, Ag ITO would be a place to go. Thanks, Heather. Anyone else? We may have answered everyone's questions, perhaps, or perhaps not. And I've just got one more final slide here. Where to go for more info? So contact your New Zealand, contact us. We can help you with that. Contact your local regional council. Oh, they're not land management, are you, Bex? You guys are rural
liaison.
Sorry. Beef and Lamb, NZ, Fonterra, Sustainable Dairy Advisor, and Farm IQ have their online program. We've got a question here. Are there examples of farm environmental plans that can be shared? And I think the answer is yes. So if anyone does want an example of a farm environmental plan, perhaps just get in touch and we can share those to anyone. Sandra, have you got anything else you wanted to add?
No, I've shared mine with heaps of friends. And they're not probably dairy farmers, they're grain farmers and sheep and beef, but it's a start and it gives them an idea on the structure and to fill some gaps. So I've got that I need to ring Bruce Allen about carbon and emissions and adding that into it. I'm not sure if I'll get him in trouble here or not, but he actually sent me it in Word doc because I want to change it rather than in a PDF and update it. So that's really helpful. So it won't be hard to add stuff in now. And also obviously freshwater module and audit coming up in the future, but it's fine. That stuff's already in there. So yeah.
Yep. Cool. And we've also got so we've got examples. New Zealand Landcare Trust have got examples from from the Waikato, and one from a deer farming one from Tasman, I think, top of the south, that we could share if anyone wants one of those as well. So cool. Well, in light of that and the fact that we haven't got any more questions, we might just let you all go escape. Get back on with your day. Hopefully you have a great day. Thanks very much for tuning in. And yeah, take care. Thank you.
Bye.